Welcome back to The Price of Business. I'm your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your business. I'm going to spend some time chatting with our producer here, Sigmund. Sigmund, he and I haven't talked much lately. He has been busy creating diabolical schemes to try to make me more brilliant than I actually am, most of which have failed miserably. But in spite of that, I did want to spend some time talking to you about what's going on. You know him, Sigmund Kramer. You also know him from KKHT. What time are you on over there?
10 to 3. 10 to 3.
To 3. You know what we could talk about? You know, we've talked a little bit about this. I do a commercial on behalf of an organization you're involved in that is trying to help free slaves in Africa. And people think slavery is dead and gone. It's not dead and gone. There's still a lot of slavery actually going on around the world. One of the most heinous examples is on the continent of Africa, and it is targeted towards. I think it's done by what are the people that are holding the Christians hostage, holding them in slavery?
The Khartoum regime in Sudan, the north part of Sudan. The Islamic militants up there.
Yeah, they're Islamic.
And they took over in the late 80s, and they basically decided, hey, we don't like Christians, and so what can we do? Let's see. We could kill them. Yeah, that's fun. We could, we have a lot of need for slaves, so why don't we not only kill a bunch, but we'll take the rest and we'll really humiliate them. We'll make them slaves. Let's do that. And that's what they did. And for over 20 years now, there's been a lot of slavery, mostly women and children at this point, and it's been going on so long, and they've actually interbreeded now with the slaves, so that now there's multiple generations of slave children, and we're trying to get them freed, but hey, you don't hear about it.
Right, and it's probably a challenge to get them free because there may be an emotional attachment from the person who interbreed with them, right?
I don't know. It's mainly.
By the way, what's the website so people get more information? And people are out there saying these guys are making this up. And it's not very funny. This is real. This is very real.
This is like biblical level kind of slavery. These are just the Khartoum regime in Sudan. Islamic militants took over. They have a bunch of cattle barons up there, and so these slaves are actually working in cattle camps, and they're being tortured. They're being mutilated, raped. Every abuse you can imagine. And when they don't convert to Islam, I mean, these are Christians, most of them.
Right.
And they've been stripped away of everything, including their Christian name. They've been given an Islamic name, so like they're all Muhammad Ali or something. And they're forced to work in these cattle camps. Well, when they don't convert, they're tortured. They're raped, mutilated. The organization that's been on the ground there since 1995 trying to put a stop to it is called Christian Solidarity International.
Christian Solidarity International.
They're a human rights organization. They go all over the globe. This is only one of many places where they're actively working, trying to stop, human rights violations. But even they speak in front of the UN, and it's like literally talking to a brick wall.
Yeah.
In fact, talking to our own government has been like talking to a brick wall. Even during the good old days when we had a Republican president, the State Department hasn't done a darn thing. And it's mainly because it's very politically incorrect, as you know, to speak out against Islamists, especially in this culture and this.
Absolutely. Well, it took a turn for the worse after the Bush administration left. This administration wants us to pretend there is no problem with Islam.
Yeah.
They try to explain that to all those folks. They try to explain that to all those folks in Boston, that recently got attacked, but again by terror.
Oh, how about Egypt?
Or Egypt? Oh boy, yeah, absolutely.
They're not exactly happy with the Muslim Brotherhood there. So
Well, give that website one more time. I'm going to make a turn to Egypt now that you brought that up.
Yeah, Christian Solidarity International. Just look them up online. There are YouTube videos because let me tell you, it's amazing. Once they are freed, once these slaves are freed, it's only $50, by the way, to free a slave because they barter, they trade with these cattle barons, and they need cattle vaccine, and so they're willing to give up a life, human life. Because it doesn't mean anything to them, but the cattle does.
Yeah.
So Novidium cattle vaccine is purchased, and $50, that's all it takes. Now,
so basically it's $50 per slave.
Yeah, and if you think about it, if there was just some rich gentleman or gentlewoman out there who wanted to write a nice big check, just make sure everybody's paid off. The thing is, honestly, though, these cattle barons, they don't need the money. They got plenty of money. These Islamists have plenty of money coming in from everywhere. It's a power struggle. It's something. Now they can't go down to the south and do slave raids anymore because South Sudan has its own government, and they said no. And the international community did stand up and say no more. But there are 35,000, that's the estimate, 35,000 slaves left behind that no sort of deal was struck to make sure they were freed. You know, there was no Emancipation Proclamation to get rid of the slaves that were already there. So, unfortunately, it's up to us. We've got to do something about it. And once they are home, they're safe. They can't be taken away again. Christian Solidarity International does a great job monitoring the situation, making sure that everything's on the up and up. And unfortunately, it's just a matter of getting them free in the first place. So I invite you to look up Christian Solidarity International, do some research, find out all you want. Check out the videos of the reunions once they're home. It's amazing. You'll want to turn over your whole paycheck to it.
Yeah, right. So, yeah, but we don't need that. If you wrote a check for $50, that would go a long way.
Absolutely.
CSI-USA.org. CSI-USA.org. And I guess you could also find it at KKHT.com.
Yeah, we're actually transitioning to a different group that we're helping this month, because one thing at KKHT is we really do every month. We try to help out a different organization that needs. You know, they're doing great work out there, but they need our help. So right now we're getting backpacks for homeless children who are attending school. Mm-hmm. And right here at home in Houston, there are tens of thousands of homeless children who are going to be attending school, but they don't have, you know, the school supplies, the personal care items, everything they need to succeed and to fit in. And it's just a huge difference. But that's a story for another time, Kevin.
Yep, a story for another time. Tell me a little bit about, no, don't tell me a little bit about, I'll get your opinion in just a minute, but the whole Egypt thing. You were here, during the Arab Spring, as I said over and over and over again. Forgive my pragmatism, but it's so much better to prop up corrupt regimes that are pro-West and or at least accommodative to the West and accommodative to Israel, and will maintain peace agreements with Israel, than to have regimes that are going to be hostile to the West, and help prop up regimes that are hostile to the West, hostile to Israel, and wage a war on minorities. Not just, by the way, Islamic minorities were being oppressed in Egypt because they were the wrong sect of Islam, and people don't understand this. But you know what I think is interesting about this? Because, as you know, I like the United States system of checks and balances with an executive branch and a legislative branch. But you know what? I don't think that works in a country like Egypt. If you're going to do democracy, which my misgivings about democracy is mob rule is what that means. But if you're going to do that, the only way you can do that is in a parliamentary system where you would have to have a bunch of minorities as part of that coalition in order for the government to exist, or that government would collapse, so that those minorities that are part of the majority would say, hey, we got to respect all those minorities, because guess what? They could become big enough to be in the same seats we're in sometime up the road.
Yeah.
And that's the only way you can get that, that kind of thing done. What do you think about that? Well, does that make sense? I mean, we should be advocating that kind of thing.
Well, we should be advocating that kind of thing. We're not going to, because, quite frankly, we don't care about the minorities. What serves our best interest? I think that they see that Islam's on the rise. Islam is making a huge inroads across the world, even in Europe, Kevin. Look at France. Fully 10%, maybe more of their population now is from Algeria. They're Islamists. They're Muslims. And everybody's kowtowing to them. Well, we are too. And to the point that even in our banking system, we're starting to have large banks, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and some others, Chase, that are actually instituting Sharia law banking. Can you believe that? Sharia banking. They're doing,
what does that mean?
Separate programs, because in Sharia law you can't lend money the same way that we do in Western culture.
So do you have to use your hand as a collateral?
Your wife.
We assume you're going to steal
Take
this.
my wife, please.
We're going to assume you're going to steal it, so you have to leave your hand.
But
what?
They're actually starting to institute Sharia type lending programs in our banking institutions. It's insane. But as far as the Arab Spring goes, I wish I was looking for the sound clip. I don't have it, unfortunately. You remember The Producers, the movie, the Mel Brooks old Broadway show?
Where they kept on selling 100% of the show to dozens of people, and at the end, the only way they could survive is if it were an absolute flop.
Absolutely. Well, you remember the song Springtime for Hitler? In Germany? Yeah, that's what the Arab Spring was. Springtime for Hitler. It just Islamo-Nazis. And, luckily, Egypt is not so happy with the Muslim Brotherhood, even though apparently our own president and our own
prop them up within days of the fall.
Yep, and now what they're going to do is they're letting the military move in, and they're going to hopefully have some semblance of a representative government there. That's going to.
They need to go to a parliamentary system. They just need to do away with the whole president type of thing. And I hate that because I do believe in checks and balances, but they got to have a head of state that it represents a coalition because there's not enough. I mean, they won more votes, but they didn't win a majority of the votes.
Think about this.
They won the most votes.
In the Islamic world, what absolutely controls people? It's not capitalism. Right? It's not. It's fear.
Fear.
It's fear
and loathing.
Fear of force. It's force. It's brute force. And to see that happen in the Middle East and in Egypt, which is probably one of the more sophisticated countries, more westernized in a lot of ways. Well,
in fact, it's the most educated country maybe in the world, let alone in the Middle East.
Well,
in terms of the number of people who graduated from college percentage-wise.
I will say this. It is clear that they still are in a 5th century kind of a mindset, and that absolute power, just brute force is what's going to make things happen over there. It hasn't changed. It hasn't changed at all. So what do I think about it? I think that, once again, it shows that the Obama administration is inept. Our foreign policy, domestic policy in every aspect, and we've basically set the world on fire is what we're doing.
Yeah, but not in a good way. Not kind of like one of those songs that came in the 60s or whatever.
Right.
It's in a bad way. Of course, most of those songs were reflecting things that weren't really good anyway. All right, how are we doing on time?
Oh, hey, stick a fork in me. We're done.
We're done. All right. You know who that guy is. We like to have Sigmund on here, and he does a fantastic job.
Once in a blue moon.
Sigmund Kramer. Check it out over there at KKHT. What time?
10 to 3, Monday through Friday, and then 6 to 9 on Saturdays.
Really?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
They get a lot out of me around here.
Man.
That's
yeah,
right.
absolutely.
That's right.
All right, when we come back, we're going to have more for you. I do want to remind you, best content here shows up over there at usdailyreview.com. While there, like it on Facebook, follow it on Twitter.